this whole experience has taught me about holding on to my joy and, remembering that no matter what is said, that like I worked very hard to be where I am, because I have the receipts, honey. And that boundaries are really helpful and healthy, in both your work life, your personal life, and in whatever your public persona is believed to be. So it's been really wonderful, and also lots of lessons. I was at a moment in my career where I really thought long and hard before I took the Hamilton job, because I sort of had gotten the bug. I was like, oh, but maybe I should start trying for slightly bigger parts. Like maybe I should start doing that now. And Andy Blankenbuehler called and he was like, I really think you should do Hamilton. And I was like, okay, all right. So I was like, I'll do it, but it would be really great if I could, have a challenging, track in one way or another, something that really challenges my acting skills. And so he came to me in rehearsal one day. He was like, come here, Ari, you're going to trace the bullet. You're going to be the bullet. And I was like, what the hell's a bullet? And he demonstrated, and he was like, just take it and run with it. And I did. And I was sitting in my dressing room at the public theater, and I just was thinking like, it's a hashtag the bullet. And that's how people will start to follow this character. And it could be like a puzzle or like a game to like see if you could figure out what she's doing. And I was like, and how cool that she's me, like brown and queer, and oh my gosh, and she's like the bullet at the end. What? Like, I was like, this could be really cool. And so I just tried something, and it took in a way when we were on Broadway, but then it really lit on fire when the Disney Plus film came out in the summer, in the middle of the pandemic, which was very cool to see the joy that people experienced as a result of being able to watch it, and all the things they learned and what it made them think about. So it was cool. It was like the gift that kept on giving in more ways than one. I'd never created anything like that I'd ever like seen it to that level. So that was cool. When they first asked me to host, the thing I said, I was like, okay, so this is what I want the tone of the show to be, but let's talk about the opening number. It's a mashup. It has to be a mashup. It's the only way we're going to get even close to celebrating 75 years in like 4 minutes.
Right.
And our producers progressively, I love them, Ricky and Glenn, but they were like, what are you talking about? Mashup. So I sent them some examples of what, my collaborators, Benjamin Rahula and Kirk Crowley, we've been doing this for years. It's what we love to do. And I sent them some examples, and they were like, oh, that could be cool, but we've never done anything like that before. So they got on board, and it was the most creative thing I think I've ever done. And we constantly challenge each other, because there was a moment, I remember we were sitting in Kurt's office, he's at the piano, and I'm like, okay, so we're in the speech section, and I'm about to come back in and sing There's a Place for Us. And I was like, we're missing Into the Woods. What song is it? There needs to be a ba 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 ba, and which is Don't You Know What's Out There in the Woods? And I was like, yes! And like, we found it. And that's the musical theater nerd that got to like truly be fulfilled in this moment. And it, honestly, I mean, every single person in that space, from Patty LuPone, Bernadette Peters, to Michael R. Jackson, we're all big theater nerds. So it was a real like collaboration and celebration of what it means to just love theater and take the most iconic sounds that people who don't like your friends or your siblings.
My siblings, my sister, yes.
Your siblings, your sister, who's not a theater person, who might be like, yeah, I've heard that Wicked theme, or that's Hairspray. I watched that in the Hairspray movie, like to bring them a little closer to theater. And that's why we made it the way we made it. In addition to being able to celebrate all of the people behind the scenes who don't normally get their flowers. The Broadway community's been through a lot, just trying to fight to keep their shows going. And I really wanted to applaud the effort and the triumph of what it took for those shows and those actors and those teams of people to get their show to the Tonys.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and you're right. We don't normally celebrate the unsung heroes, but
Yeah.
again, being someone who was an understudy, I was like, people, that's the thing people like to say. They're like, oh my gosh, Ariana DeBose is great. She's an overnight success. And I was like, oh, but it took her 10 years to
Yeah.
be an overnight success.
Yeah.
When you start from humble beginnings and you work your way up and you see, like, I have seen what the different groups of people go through. I've seen how hard it is to be a stage manager, and I've seen costume associates be unfortunately disrespected or not acknowledged. And I've seen what it is to try and pull looks together at the last minute, and ultimately everybody's shortchanged, but you got to make it work. And those efforts, whether you're on Broadway or at Google or any organization, like, those efforts actually deserve to be applauded. So it was really like my first day on set, and I was a very expensive background player. I had like a small part, but it was a Meryl number. So I was like, I knew why I was there. I was there to like watch the queen. And I'm sitting there in my little pink shirt and my little ponytail. And, she's doing this section of It's Not About Me. And, she does it the first time, flawless. And we're all just like, ugh. And she does it again and clapping again. And then she does it again and we're clapping again. And then I notice I have something on my skirt. I'm like fixing my skirt. And it ends. That section ends. And I didn't realize she was walking towards me. And I look up and she says, "You're not clapping. Was it not good?" To which I said, no, it was amazing. And I bowed. I got out of my seats into the floor and I bowed. And she was like, "Darling, I'm just messing with you." We created the Unruly Hearts Initiative at the time to serve as just a bridge between folks who watch the prom and, and organizations out in the world that are already doing the good work. It's with due respect. I was like, if GLAAD is doing it, then I should just partner with GLAAD as opposed to trying to create something new. So we just created a website that hopefully made it easier for young people and parents alike to find resources that could help them. And we focused on housing insecurity solutions, higher education, and mental health awareness and mental health resources. And our partners have been Covenant House, Point Foundation, and the Trevor Project. And you can go to our website and donate to those folks directly through our website, if that is something you would like to do. But we also highlight other organizations and what resources that they provide to you as well.
Was there something that affected you that made you want to advocate so hard for those whose voice isn't always heard? Was there, something happened?
This is a roundabout thing, but I participated in Broadway Bears One Year, which is an event in the Broadway community, hosted by Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And the year that I participated, they were doing like educational sessions, and one of them was to go to a screening of How to Survive a Plague. And it's an incredible documentary about the AIDS epidemic, the AIDS plague. And when it was first coming around, and it was such an education because it was nothing that I ever received in school. And I just realized, I was like, oh my gosh, this sickness invaded these communities and nobody listened, and they turned them into a target and tried to make them believe that they deserved it. And I was just like, I can't get down with that. And then I realized, oh, but I'm queer. What is the difference of if a plague came along and targeted me? Have we made enough progress where that would not happen again? And my answer was no. So that's why I started to advocate. And then I just tried to become more educated I had an experience. I'm very passionate about homeless youth, specifically homeless LGBTQ plus youth. And I had an experience when I first moved to the city where I didn't have anywhere to go for 24 plus hours, and I just rode the subway. And it was the scariest moment I've ever had in the city. And I was young, I was 19. And I just remember how I felt. And then when I discovered Covenant House and I heard these stories from these young people, I was like, to me, these are adjacent. Everybody deserves housing. Everybody deserves a voice. Nobody should be told that their voice doesn't matter because of their circumstances or because of how they identify, their religion, their sexuality, their race. So I was just like, yeah, okay, my existence is one of rebellion and advocacy, and I have to find a way to do it through art because that's what I know how to do. In my opinion, and I've spoken with Judith Light about this a lot lately, because she was like, I'm just really proud of you that you're not hiding and that you are so open about, who you are and what you don't have to hide, and you are not hiding. There was a time where people had to hide.
Right.
But her point really was the visibility is helpful. It's moving us forward because it's normalizing our humanity. And what's irritating is that we shouldn't have to normalize our humanity. But in the world that we live in, it seems that effort still needs to be made.
Yes.
And
yes.
I believe in the effort.
Let's talk about something else. Schmigadoon.
You talk about happy.
Happy, yeah. Let's talk about happy. Although Schmigadoon it's a very light-hearted homage to the musicals of the 40s and 50s.
The first season I just really thought was so singular because I personally had never seen a series like that had the ability to not take itself too seriously, but could also have some of these discussions. You see out queer characters who come out, women who have agency, like you said. My character Emma Tate, she's very strong-willed. She's a woman ahead of her time, but she also has a secret, and so there's some stuff that she's got to figure out because she's an incredible presence in her community, but she's talking the talk, and you also have to walk the walk.
Right.
And I love Cecily Strong's character because she's a doctor, and she advocates for women and women's reproductive rights, which we love to see. So, it was just, for me, I just thought it was a smart way to have some deeper conversations in a lighter setting. Because I guess when you slap a musical on it, it makes it easier to take. I'm not sure, but the story seems to be received. I mean, we are doing a season 2.
Keeping with the funny SNL, what was that experience like?
Crazy. Oh my gosh, it was so nuts. But you know what was fun is it felt very natural to me, which means I'm either a sociopath or I just have a great background in theater. I had so much fun, and I was terrified because I'm not a sketch comic. I was like, I say things and they're honest and they happen to be funny. I'm not Chris Red. I'm certainly no Kate McKinnon. Like, yikes. It does feel like theater, but it's theater on crack.
Right, exactly.
Like, it's nuts. But I loved it. And I have said to Lauren, I was like, I would do it again. If this acting thing works out, I'd love to come back.
You and I are both half Puerto Rican, or Puerto Rican. We both grew up on farms, and both raised by very strong single women. My father passed when I was very young, and so my mother took very good care of all of us. We were not raised in a Latin community per se. So a lot of what I've learned has been as an adult. Spanish is not my first language. It comes later in life. This kind of leads me to West Side Story. Was that something that jumped into your head before taking the role, knowing, that you weren't, you didn't grow up within that community? So do you think there would be some negative feedback because of that?
Oh, Yeah, absolutely. It took me a while to even show up to audition because I was like, I don't think this is gonna go well. I'm not what they want. My background is not good enough. Like they're gonna hate that I'm not fluent. They're gonna hate that I wasn't steeped in it in the same way as other people might have been. And I just felt, looking back on it, I'm like, wow, girl, you had a heavy not enough complex, which is not shocking, to be perfectly
Mhm.
frank, for
Yeah.
people of color in marginalized communities who
Mhm.
identify the way that I identify. But it just, I was very afraid. This was the job that I was very afraid of. And my girlfriend was like, that's why you need to go in
Mhm.
because you're very afraid of it. She's like, you might learn something and it might bring you closer to your culture. And she was right. It did. It brought me so much closer to my culture and it gave me a chance to be surrounded by people who look like me, people
Mhm.
who feel like me.
Mhm.
Um, because I don't know, it's interesting when you feel like when you're growing up, you feel like you're always bringing the spice to the
Yeah.
party. You know
Right,
what I'm
right,
saying?
right,
Like, if
right,
that makes
right,
sense. I
right.
was like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
no, the whole room is spicy." Like, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
And so it was the greatest. Like, yes, the awards are lovely, and I
Uh-huh.
appreciate the recognition. I'm so grateful. But I was like, the real gift was a sense of acceptance and a knowledge of this part of my identity that I had really never been afforded. When I see clips of America, I'm like, gosh, it's so nice to see Latin joy that, or see people who are just out in their everyday. We're not drug runners or drug mules. We're
Mhm.
not, cartel leaders.
Mhm.
I knew if I had set out to try and do something that had already been done,
Right,
I would fail because
right.
nobody wants to see that. Because due respect, there are purists who really love the
Mhm.
61 film as they should. And if I had gone out just trying to do what Rita Moreno had already done so brilliantly,
Yeah.
number one, I sell myself short. And number
Mhm.
two, we don't need it. I'll be honest, my time in Hamilton, it's not that I was desensitized to celebrity or meeting iconic people, but that experience gave me the opportunity to meet, gosh, all of my heroes
Right.
or pretty close to, and I met him then, so
Oh, good.
yeah, I met him
Right.
then, and I was standing by the wall when there's a wall outside of what was Chris Jackson's, um, dressing room, and everybody that came through would sign it, and he wrote, "This is history, Steven Spielberg," and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so iconic." When we talk about love, it's love of all kinds, though, and I think our film did a really good job of highlighting that there are many different kinds of love that save you, and it's not always young love. In fact, young love can be short-sighted, um, with the best of intentions, but it can be short-sighted. Um, but there are different types of love that can enlighten you as to what life is really about. And I personally, one of my favorite relationships in our film is um, it's Rita Moreno. She does that scene. What's happening with our Tony? And she says, "Life matters more than love." And he's like, "They're the same thing." And I was just like, these two perspectives are so valid. And I think the film's ability to show you the generation gap, but that we're actually not that far apart, is really important too.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And also
Well,
we still got a lot of work to do because like if you've seen the film and the end you see the closing image of the film, I'm like,
yeah.
still
Yeah.
happening. Still happening. How much has
Yeah.
changed? I remember when someone like me didn't have a seat at the table. You didn't get to see this or in the way that I moved through the world.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
if I feel like Judith Light said, if you have privilege and platform, what are you going to do with them?
Exactly.
And if you don't
Exactly.
know what you're going to do with them, then why do you have them? And I was like, "Oh, I feel challenged." So I just hope
Yeah.
I can continue to rise to the occasion.